On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, the Oklahoma City Thunder get a big bounce back win over the Houston Rockets.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer at Thunder on SI, Rylan Styles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod at gmail.com. On today's show, we're discussing the Thunder's bounce back win over the Houston Rockets in a game that many had questions about because the Thunder just dropped a game to Denver where they let up 124 points. So heading into that game, the Thunder had only given up 100 points twice. That was the third game this season so far that they've surrendered 100 points. And it was their largest point total of the season giving up 124, and their first loss of the year. And as you know, you never forget your first, including your first loss. The first loss of the year is always the toughest, especially for the outside to consume. These players understand that it's just 1 out of 82, but in large part, especially whenever you have a fan base that's been built up through 7 games, that first loss is a stinger. And especially whenever you've played a team like Denver who was down a few players. So how they were going to bounce back against Houston was interesting. Because Houston, they improved last year, and you can't take that away from them. But even when the Thunder went 2-1 a year ago against Houston, it was a difficult matchup for OKC, especially 2 years ago whenever they made the play-in tournament. It was still a difficult matchup for Oklahoma City against Houston. So this was actually a really fun game to start a 6-game homestand. And everything came true that the Thunder needed to happen. The role players played better at home. Their big three got cooking on the same page. And that's a recipe for success every time. I want to put into perspective that loss in Denver really quickly, and we'll move on to Houston. You lost by 2 points to the Denver Nuggets when 2 of your 3 guys were bad. 2 of your 3 stars were bad. Shai, pretty box score. The 8 turnovers were killer. Chet had more misses than makes. And you had a shot at the buzzer that you like, Shai getting to the rim at the buzzer to go to overtime. So that's how good this team is. And so you can see how whenever this team is clicking in on all cylinders that they can just overwhelm squads. And in this game, in the first quarter, it's tied. At the end of 12 minutes, it's a tie game. And you're thinking to yourself, wow, this is a tough matchup. This has been something that the Thunder, a team that Thunder have had a little bit of problems with recently. Here we go again. It's going to be another dogfight. It was not a dogfight. Spoiler alert, not a dogfight. The Thunder win 126-107. The fourth time they've given up 100 points, but it was barely in garbage time. The fourth quarter was entirely academic. Really, most of the second half was, with the Thunder swelling a massive lead in the second quarter. OKC got up by 29 points in this game. 11 lead changes, 7 ties, all that happened in the first quarter. From quarter number 2 on, it was wire to wire for Oklahoma City. Houston never grew a lead bigger than 3. So you really took it to Houston. What was interesting about this game on the stats, and then we'll get into individual players, the rebound differential was 7 points. 7 boards, I should say. 7 rebounds for a team like OKC that only had Chet Holmgren. They actually went to Dylan Jones first as a backup big and didn't even use Ousmane Dieng until garbage time. The turnovers, though, was that Houston had 12. Houston had 17 and OKC had 10. That in and of itself, and this is going to be silly to say, but from the first 8 games, it is true. You look at that and you go, Houston only had 17 turnovers. In the context of regular NBA games, it's a ton of turnovers. In the context of the Thunder, not that many. But you look at this game flow, in that tied first quarter, the Thunder only forced 2 turnovers. After that first quarter, they forced 15. So 15 in 3 quarters is pretty phenomenal. And then the Thunder just shot better in every which way. They made over half their field goal attempts, shooting 51% from the floor. They made 37% of their threes to the Rockets' 36. And they made 87% of their free throws, which they got to the line 20 times, 23 times and made 20 of them. Points in the paint, heavily in favor of the Thunder. Second chance points, heavily in favor of the Rockets. Fast break points, OKC by 6. What I think that you saw in this game was, one, the turnovers caught up to Houston. We mentioned that was a big outlier from their tied first quarter to their blowout second, third, and fourth quarter. And also in that first quarter, Jalen Green had 10 points, a 10-point first quarter where he was absolutely cooking. Jalen Green ends with 14. And that's a combination of many factors. Number one, the Thunder have more point of attack defenders than anyone. And number two, the Thunder will make you pay more than any other team for having non-shooters. They will make you pay more than any other team for having guys who cannot shoot the basketball. In the modern era, it's hard already to employ non-three-point shooters. For as good as the Thunder's offense was a year ago, you saw that with Josh Giddey, where it makes life difficult. You can still navigate it. The Thunder, the top 5 offense in the NBA, you can still navigate it, but it's more challenging, and you've got to hit tougher shots, and you've got to be more disciplined. You've got to pass the ball more. You've just got to be more crisp when you're playing non-shooters, because it gives the defense a decisive advantage of what they can do, and you saw that bear out here. You cannot deny Jalen Green's scoring ability in this first quarter. You cannot deny his scoring ability in this season, and really dating back to last March when he really got things in gear. But what changed? It's not as though Jalen Green stopped being a good scorer. We know he's a good scorer. What changed was, after that first quarter, the Thunder started playing the gaps incredibly hard. The Thunder were just plugging off of all of their guys on the perimeter to shut off Jalen Green drives. And if you somehow wiggle your way through that, which you did not, you have Chet Holmgren looming in most minutes. You just can't play that way. You cannot play that way. You saw that against the Spurs with Wemby, where he had a terrible night. You saw that in Orlando whenever they just are looking to Franz, and he was spectacular in his next game, but was awful against Oklahoma City. If you don't have spacing around you where you've got to stay at least a semblance of discipline, what happens is, sure, Fred VanVleet went 2 for 4 and Dillon Brooks went 3 for 4. That's great. But everyone else, Tari Eason 2 for 5, everyone else, you feel really comfortable with your athleticism of, we can gap really hard and bring help really hard on Jalen Green drives because we're athletic enough to contest enough, right? These guys don't need smothering contest to miss threes. And the Thunder can get in and get out with the best of them, to where non-shooters, and especially shooters you can just outright ignore, it's just difficult to play them against OKC. It's why you need outlier games like Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook, you saw them not even flinch when he got the ball on the perimeter on Wednesday. He just so happened to go 3 for 4, and that was a great game from him from the three-point line. But when you can take Jalen Green out of the game, you can take this entire team out of the game. He's the straw that stirs the drink so far this season offensively for Houston. So you took away their star, and then all three of yours were humming. We'll talk Chet and Shai both putting up 29 points coming up after this. But first, I want to say right now, but good friends over at FanDuel, go check out FanDuel today because they're America's #1 sports book. It's a football weekend, so if you want to tackle some NFL or college action, make sure you go to FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. When you do, when you place your first $5 bet, you'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win. It's FanDuel, America's sports app. It gives you the sports book, America's #1 sports book, and everything you need to bet on the NFL, college football, college basketball, the NBA, all in one place. Whether you're in the middle of a game and you get a hunch, or if you want to play the long game, bet futures, or if you just have a feeling about a game going into it, like OU favored by 3.5 points in Missouri, you can also bet on the NBA. If that's more your style, you're only an NBA fan listening to this, you can go bet on the NBA. A 4-game slate in the association on Saturday, but you can still head over to FanDuel.com, and when you do, you place your first $5 bet, you'll get $150 in bonus bets if you're able to win that $5 bet. Even if you take a layup and you win it, you will get that bonus bet given to you for your first $5 bet. You might be able to take a layup with the Cavs favored by 13 points against Brooklyn, and the Spurs 6.5-point favorites against Utah. Plus, you have the Clippers and Raptors going at it with 7.5-point spreads in that one in favor of LA. Go check it out today at FanDuel.com. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Let's talk individual matchups in this one, individual performances. Got to start with Chet Holmgren. Like, Chet Holmgren was so special in this game. 29 points, 5 rebounds, an assist, 3 blocks. Starting defensively, and then we can work to the bigger picture offensively. There's no doubt about it that Chet was already an elite defender as a rookie, which is hard to do, and especially at the big man position. You've gotten spoiled a bit by seeing Wemby and D-Live and Chet have really successful rookie seasons, but that's an anomaly. You typically, historically, have seen that that's the position that takes the longest time to come around for guys. It's been easy for those three, especially easy for Chet, but he's improved defensively from an already elite level. What you're seeing him being able to do right now with his hip rotations are something to behold, where he's taking away shots at each side of the block in one possession. He's going 2 for 1 at the rim. It's a BOGO sale at the rim for Chet Holmgren. 3 blocks in this one, many more deterred shots, 10 trips to the free throw line by being aggressive at the rim. I asked Mark about the free throws and the free throw rate and what they can do internally to get more calls. And he mentioned that they're always going to be looking in the mirror, but they think that over the course of a body of work, they'll start to get more calls. They got 23 freebies tonight. A couple of those, of course, technical fouls. But you look at this and you saw more aggressive Shai and Chet. They had 7 and 10 free throws respectively, and that carried the bulk of the free throw duties for OKC. Chet was able to be more aggressive by improving his handle, which I asked him about that after the game, and he said that he has improved his handle, he believes, and he did spend the offseason working on that, and you can really tell it. And 2 possessions really allow you to see it, because he absolutely torched and picked on Alfred Sengun. And that was an element of his game last year, shooting over smaller players, which this does not apply to Sengun, but shooting over smaller players and taking advantage of mismatches. Those were some things that he did at times, but often left on the table. And you're not a complete player as a rookie. Nobody claims you're going to be. So to see him improve on that in year 2 is very encouraging for this guy who has all-world talent. And for Chet Holmgren, the possession where he just breaks down Sengun and takes him to the paint and gets Sengun on his hip, and there's nothing left to do than foul him. Like, Sengun literally had to bear hug him to get him to the line and take away easy points. And then you got Sengun out on the perimeter, and you danced with him, and took a step back 3. A pretty long step back 3, I might add, and cashed it home. Like, those are possessions that few 7-footers can pull off, and possessions that Chet, I don't want to say struggle with, but seldomly took advantage of a year ago. 4 for 6 from 3, 8 for 14 from the floor. So he was spectacular. Shai was spectacular with 29 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal and a block with 3 steals for him. He went 1 for 2 from 3, 68% from the floor. With Shai, first and foremost, you're seeing defenses respect his 3-point shot. And it's interesting because they're respecting just the sheer volume right now because the percentages are not there. He has not shot the ball well percentage-wise, but he has increased his volume to where guys are closing out harder. Guys are getting out there on him, and if they press up on him, as he mentioned tonight, that's what opens up the mid-range game in the rim. It wasn't as though he was closed off to that in the first 8 games. It was that they were not available to him because they were not respecting that 3-point shot enough. And now in this game where they're just going at him and closing out hard, he's able to get to the mid-range more. I think I would have to assume he shot the most mid-range shots of his season tonight and got to the rim more, in an individual game, that is. And it's all predicated on how the defense is defending him. And you saw him and Chet in the 2-man game take advantage of this perfectly. There was a situation where, Sengun got switched on to Shai at the above the break, and Sengun, of course, is going to call for the Rockets to switch back. And it was a delayed switch, but Shai's able to read that situation perfectly where he notices the late switch from the Rockets. And not only was it a late switch, it was a hard switch. They were trying to close out really hard on Shai on the 3-point line, goes right past the closer, the guy closing out on him, and that causes Sengun to stay home. And what does Shai do? Does he try to break down Sengun to go into a spin move and get around him, which he probably could have done because he's so talented? No. He notices that Sengun has to stay home. that means that Chet is somewhere uncovered. He just so happened to be on the perfect ball side corner for a corner three, wide open. Chet splashed it home. But whenever you see defenses react to Shai in this way, that's why you do it. That's why you take the threes. Of course, you hope to make every shot, but why you take the threes is to force the defense to react to something else. Force the defense to try to shut down something else. And I think he's more than capable of improving his percentages. He went 1 for 2 tonight from three, and that kind of leveling it out over the course of the year. It wasn't just about making the threes. It's about opening the floor for himself and others. Because you saw it no more than freeing up a Chet open corner three of if one guy's closing out hard, we know Shai's going to beat him off the dribble. He'll beat you off the dribble if you're playing straight up in good position. That forces other people to leave their assignments because you're not just going to want Shai walking to the rim, because the probability of Shai making a layup if you just let him walk to the rim versus any shooter in the world shooting a corner three, you're of course going to bank on Shai making that layup because threes are at times tricky. Of course, they can bounce different ways, whereas layups don't have that same variable. So it just dictates the terms and conditions of what the Thunder are able to do offensively and what defenses have to do to defend the Thunder to see him uptick his three-point volume. But this was a game all around where the Thunder reaped the benefits of that because the Rockets were so bent on taking away the three. Jalen Williams only took one. He took 11 shots. One of them was a three. He went 7 for 10 inside the arc on his way to 14 points. And again, this was a game where it was all academic for the most part. So like the numbers don't need to be too gaudy. And whenever you have two other guys scoring 29 apiece, there's not many points left, especially whenever you factor in Isaiah Joe's 14 off the bench, AJ Mitchell's 12 off the bench, and then you had Caruso at 10. When you look at the big three, this is the kind of night that it's just irredeemable for the other team. Like if these three guys are playing at this level, you can't beat them. Now, granted, how often can you get 20 points a night from these two guys, and then another good efficient night from Jalen? But when you do get it, these are the games where you just pack your bags if you're the other team and go home. And it's just kind of late early for you. But I thought that Shai and Shai and Chet especially were really impressive. After that dog snafu, I thought that Chet and Shai were really, really great in this game. There's no other way to put it. And then Jalen had his role. I thought that Dort had his least impressive offensive game, clearly with going 1 for 5 from three, and you still were able to absolutely blow out the Houston Rockets, in large part because of your rotation, which we'll talk about coming up. But first, I want to say right now, my good friends over at Game Time, go check out the Game Time app today, which I believe is the best app for NBA. And I'll tell you why. Because with Game Time, it's the last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And I love that about the NBA because if you're an avid fan, which you are listening to the show on a Saturday, you know that in the NBA, it's all about the injury report. Who's questionable, who's in, who's out. You can wait to buy your ticket until you know exactly who's going to play at Game Time. They have their all-in pricing, which you can toggle on, which shows you every single total you're going to pay up front. No surprise fees at checkout. That is my biggest pet peeve about buying tickets online is the surprise fees. You can take that away at Game Time with you whenever you toggle that feature on. I also love the view from your seat. Where do I sit at the Paycom Center? What's the best sight line? You can just dart around on the seat map and get a view from every single seat and see which one you prefer. Lowest prices guaranteed. Game Time ticket coverage allows you to purchase and cover your tickets with more flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry than anyone else. Go there right now at Game Time. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Create your account. Redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Create your account. What time is it? Game Time. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Talking Thunder basketball. Talking about the bench now. The bench was impressive for OKC. Like Wiggins had a quiet 8 points, but they were a timely 8 points in this game. And in the sense of, things weren't hanging in the balance, but possessions were. Like individual possessions were, it's now or never to score the basketball. Time's running out, and Wiggins was good in that role, as was really everyone else. 5 for 10 from the floor for Isaiah Joe, 3 for 8 from beyond the arc to the tune of 14 points. 6 rebounds for Isaiah Joe just goes to the point of when you look at this team and how they've improved in the rebounding category statistically, I think it's been one, a focus on everybody getting to the glass, but two, an aggression level of getting to the glass where, yes, they're undersized clearly because they don't have three of their front court guys. They don't have Hartenstein, they don't have Jay Will, they don't have Kenrich, but they're able to fight. They're able to fight down there, tap away rebounds, and then once you get to a tip drill situation, once you get to a situation where the ball's batted over here, then it beelines over there, you have the best ball hawks, the best tip drill guys in the NBA. You just do. Like you have the guys with the most instincts for the basketball, 1 through 17, 1 through 18 than anybody else. So Joe was really good on that front. AJ Mitchell was superb. 12 points, 7 assists off the bench. I think that AJ Mitchell is the perfect fit for OKC because we're going to talk about the same, the same situation with Caruso on the flip side. With AJ Mitchell, he's not mastered it because no one masters anything 9 games in. It takes a 10,000 hour rule, whatever the old TED Talk is. But he is really high level at understanding when to hit the right buttons. Of like, when you look at this Thunder system, it's so selfless at times that it can be a detriment. Because when you see this Thunder team pass up good shots, working for great shots, then that in your mind leads you to say, I believe, okay, this is a good shot that I can take, but is this the good shot we want for the possession, or are we supposed to keep trying for a great shot? And AJ Mitchell walks that tightrope so well as a rookie that I think is the exact example of my theory of when you are brought up in this system, and this is the only system that you know, and this is the only training camp you've been to, this is the only environment you've ever been in. When this is how you play, or from the first day in an NBA on an NBA floor, it makes it easier to understand that concept and understand that balancing act. Because it is different than any other team in the NBA. Like, look around the NBA, how many teams are passing up good shots to hunt great shots? Yeah, if it's one additional pass, they'll do it. But the Thunder oftentimes pass up a good shot because they rely and trust in their decision makers that it might take 2 or 3 passes, but with the way the defense is aligned, we can eventually break them down for a great shot. And that's just not how other teams play. And so now moving on to Caruso, I think that that's where you've seen him struggle a little bit because he's not taken any bad shots, but he's also passed up some good looks. And the good looks he is taking, because they've all been quality looks, the good looks he is taking, they have been shots that he normally makes and just didn't go in. And you've got to progress to the mean where he's shooting 2 for 3 tonight from the 3-point line and 3 for 5 overall. But I think that what you're seeing the gears turn now, playing off of Shai, J-Dub, and Chet, and playing off of this whole team and this whole construct, is you're seeing a guy get more comfortable game after game of that decision-making process of, is this the good shot we want, or are we still working for a great shot? Are we ready to, quote unquote, settle for this good shot, or are we still hunting a great shot? And that's a fine line, because sometimes you run that line like you did in the Dallas series where the great shot never comes and you should have just taken the good shot. And then you're kicking yourself on, why did I just take this shot? We just wasted a whole shot clock, or we just took a contested 3 because I passed up this good shot. So that stuff can, I think, weigh on you. And that's my theory. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but my theory is the reason why AJ's picked it up so well is that he's never known anything else. But Caruso, who's played off of LeBron, played off of AD, played off of Levine, like he's played off of these superstars, that it's pretty easy. When you're open and they pass you the ball, you shoot. Coming to the Thunder is a learning curve. The good news is you have a whole training camp where he was assimilating. You have a whole season of 82 games where he can continue to find his groove before the stakes arrive. Because it's pretty clear that the Thunder are going to just waltz into a top 4 seed. It's pretty clear the Thunder are the best team in the West in terms of record-wise in the NBA. I know that there's still a tight race up there, but who do you trust night in and night out to show up in the regular season? I would put every dollar I had on the Thunder showing up more consistently and routinely to that, October, November through, March through April. So I just think that they're going to be a top 2 seed, and I think that they're going to be the number 1 overall seed in the West. So you have a long runway here before the games kind of start to start to stack up, and that he's going to find it. I think that he found tonight. Tonight was his most comfortable game, not just because of the product, like the production. Obviously, it's easy to say that from a 10-point game, but it just aesthetically looked like his most comfortable game of that decision-making process. And I just want to give a huge shout out to Caruso, Dillon Jones, and AJ Mitchell, because all three of them in different instances really put a body on Adams down low and helped end possessions. Mitchell had a box out that sparked the J-Dub transition layup. Caruso had positioning on Adams down low, was bumping him out to the low block and out of the play, gearing up for a drive, and then peeled off of him to go swat Thompson as a driver, like taking away two different options at once. And then Dillon Jones, his first possession in the game, what do you got to do? Oh, you got to go box out Steven Adams. The shot was made, so it didn't like result in the rebound or anything, but he still had to go bang down low with Steven Adams, which was not an easy task. I thought that was interesting and a wrinkle to see Usman Jang not play until garbage time for someone who's been a really productive and serviceable small ball five to go to Dillon Jones instead. You have to imagine it's just based upon sheer bulk and sheer size, but they were both quality tonight. And the Thunder were quality again. It's blowout time again in OKC, 26-107. They play again on Sunday against the Golden State Warriors, which is always a fun game. Number one, it's just awesome to watch Steph Curry play. Love him or hate him, you cannot deny his talent and his just skill, especially even starting at the warm-up stages of the game. And number two, it is always a fun environment because, for better or worse, the Warriors have this chokehold in this era, in this generation of NBA fans that still are well represented at these Warriors Thunder games that cheer for the Warriors. So it's the closest thing that you get in the NBA to like a neutral site. And it's not really neutral because the Thunder fans still way outweigh the Warriors fans, but you get the loudest road pop, for a road team in the Paycom Center from Golden State, and then Boston's a close second. But it's really just those two teams that really get a pop from their road fans in the Paycom Center. So that's always a fun little wrinkle. Plus, you got a little bit of drama. Like the Thunder have stayed out of the drama game, but in the NBA, the drama is never far behind. They've stayed out of the drama game, but the Shai, Steph, Instagram stuff last year, which everyone with any ties to Golden State has leaked out that offended or rubbed the Warriors the wrong way. And then the Draymond stuff this year where he's complaining about the Thunder's post-game interviews, and even Alex Dukas was taking a shot at it at Blue Media Day, unprovoked. I just think that there's a chance for fireworks on Sunday, some fun basketball. So if you want to go out there, check out Game Time. Use promo code LOCKEDONNBA to go get your tickets. I'll be there in Section 104 handing out Lockdown Thunder stickers. If you see me there, say what's up. Appreciate all of you that came by today. And until next time, we're going to recap the Warriors game. Be good and be good to one another.